Welcome back to Talk of the Town. Our next guest is from a nonprofit that began as a 5-year experiment and now, 30 years later, has grown to have a staff of 10, I think. That sounds about right. Many volunteers and have helped even more people along the way. With me I have Rena Kornblum. She's from the Hancock Center for Dance Movement Therapy. Thanks for coming in today, Rena.
Thanks for having me.
Did I get that right? You have a staff of around 10 now?
Well, we just had 2 people retire, so we're
now
a slightly smaller staff.
But still, 30 years later, actually it's a little over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start at the beginning. What is dance movement therapy?
So dance movement therapy is a unique form of psychotherapy that integrates the entire person. It uses movement, creativity, words, to integrate the mind and the body. It's strength-based. So a lot of times people come to therapy and they come maybe with a problem in mind, and what they're thinking about is how big their problem is. And in dance movement therapy, we look for, we accept the problem, but we look for what are their strengths. And we start with what people's strengths are, and we use those to work through issues.
Now, the woman that founded this, she has a PhD in clinical psychology, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's definitely based in psychology. She also had some education in dance as well, so there's that integration there. So I understand it's a way to access emotions and issues that maybe verbal therapy cannot get to?
That's correct.
Okay.
Sometimes they work very well together, and you shouldn't think that because you're going to a dance therapy session, you're not going to talk.
Right.
Because it's a balance of both. And in fact, some people, maybe they have a large background in trauma and they might come to a session and they're not ready to move yet. So then what we might work on is gaining a sense of what's going on in their body. Even if they're sitting in a chair, like I'm sitting in the chair right now, I can feel my feet on the ground. I can feel my bottom in the chair. I can feel my breath. So I become aware of what's going on in my body. And as I begin to talk about different issues that maybe get me upset, my breathing might change, tension areas might change, and I might start with that. A session might not look like dance.
Sure.
And I think it's really important for people to understand that when people come to a dance movement therapy session, we're not teaching them dance lessons. And they don't need to have any dance background.
So the folks, the therapists that are conducting these sessions are trained to look at kinesiology, neurology, anatomy, movement, things like that, as well as the psychology end of things.
That's correct.
All right.
We are licensed in the state of Wisconsin to practice psychology through dance movement therapy.
Okay. What might a session look like?
Okay, so sessions are different by who your client is. But almost every session has a warm-up where we're warming up the body or checking in either verbally or physically, a place where we might develop a theme, and some kind of a closure where we're coming back to center. So a warm-up might be, if I had a group, say, it might be everybody come up with a movement and then to show how you're feeling today. And then everybody does that movement. And so we do it together. So you might say, oh, I'm having a hard day, and here's my movement. So we might all do that, and we might make the same sigh of, And so everybody acknowledges how you're feeling. We go around, everybody's checking in and acknowledging and seeing. Being seen and heard is an important part of the work.
It sure is, yeah.
Let's say half of the people are having a hard day. That might become a theme of, wow, it seems like a lot of you are feeling stressed out. Let's see if we can take that into a movement activity. And that movement activity can vary from putting some music on, and maybe we would do some stress reduction, but maybe we would go into the feeling stressed. And like, how could we make it bigger? Could you make that feeling of stress into a sculpture that you could visualize and we could move with that?
Sure. We're actually, believe it or not, out of time. And there's so much
We
more
didn't
to
even
talk
get into the
about.
clients that we serve.
I know, you help so many people. We'll have to have you back and go a little bit deeper into this. Thank you so much for coming on today, Rena. This is Rena Kornblum. She's from the Hancock Center of Dance Movement Therapy on Hancock Street. We'll be right back with more Talk of the Town.